Another wild week in Washington. The president pushing to get Republicans to vote for the Obamacare repeal bill, and the FBI director just publicly confirmed his agency's investigating possible ties between the Trump campaign and the Russians. Former Connecticut Congressman Chris Shays will join us for more. Then our panel of attorneys here to take a look at the Supreme Court nominee Neil Gorsuch, his positions, what he has to say about President Trump, and how he may impact the court. Also, a noted Cornell law professor will join us to discuss the hearings themselves and whether there is a better way to pick such a vital position. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to RFL. Thank you so much for joining us. I am Richard French. Well, the wiretapping story is getting even more muddled. Just a couple days after FBI Director James Comey said this about President Trump's claims that he was wiretapped by President Obama.
I have no information that supports those tweets, and we have looked carefully inside the FBI. The Department of Justice has asked me to share with you that the answer is the same for the Department of Justice and all its components.
So just a few days later, Devin Nunes, the head of the House Intelligence Committee, just dropped this bombshell.
I recently confirmed that on numerous occasions, the intelligence community incidentally collected information about U.S. citizens involved in the Trump transition. Details about U.S. persons associated with the incoming administration, details with little or no apparent foreign intelligence value, were widely disseminated in intelligence community reporting. Third, I have confirmed that additional names of Trump transition team members were unmasked. And fourth and finally, I want to be clear, none of this surveillance was related to Russia or the investigation of Russian activities or of the Trump team.
Now remember, Nunes is a Republican. His job is oversight. But it seems the first person that he dealt with on this was not people in his committee, but instead the President of the United States. Well, the ranking Democrat on the Intel Committee, Adam Schiff, not too happy with the way that Nunes announced all of this. Schiff is upset about numerous things, including how the process went. That Nunes, who's supposed to serve in the same committee as he, ran to the White House with the revelation instead of even sharing it with the committee. He learned about this, as the rest of us did, with a press conference. He's also saying this is all even more reason that we need to have an independent prosecutor handle the whole mess. Schiff also saying it's impossible to evaluate the accuracy of what Nunes is saying since he shared it with no one. Donald Trump, though, as you'd expect, he's none too upset by this. Here's what he just had to say.
Do you feel vindicated by Chairman Zinnia's removal?
I somewhat do. I must tell you, I somewhat do. I very much appreciated the fact that they found what they found, but I somewhat do.
Again, as a reminder, this has zero, nada, zippo to do with the claims that President Obama wiretapped President Trump or President-elect Trump. All right, this taking the attention off the latest allegations, though, against this guy, former Trump campaign manager Paul Manafort. Associated Press breaking the following story today. AP saying Manafort secretly worked for a Russian billionaire to advance the interests of the Russian President Vladimir Putin a decade ago and proposed an ambitious political strategy to undermine anti-Russian opposition across former Soviet republics. The White House attempting to play down the story. Here's what Press Secretary Sean Spicer had to say.
Nothing in this morning's report references any actions by the president, the White House, or any Trump administration official. I think that's got to be clear from the get-go. The report is entirely focused on actions that Paul took a decade ago regarding, he's a former advisor of the campaign, and the actions that came to light this morning are about a client that he had last decade.
He also said Paul Manafort was a low-ranking member. By the way, he was a campaign manager for the Trump campaign for a good chunk. And don't forget, earlier this week, Comey made the stunning announcement that the FBI has formally started investigating possible ties between the Trump campaign and Russia last summer. The other big story is, if we needed more in Washington today, of course, the health care issue and the battle over what will replace Obamacare. House Speaker Paul Ryan hoping to bring it to the floor for a full House vote tomorrow, but by all counts, it's going to be a close one. Reuters saying Ryan can only afford to lose about 20 GOP votes and Freedom Caucus aides saying that more than 25 of its members are, as we speak, opposed to the bill. If it even gets through the House, it would face, by almost every account, a near impossible road in the Senate. Republicans hold a much slimmer majority there, so only 3 GOP defections would kill it, and already more than that have said they oppose it. Well, I spoke about all this and more with Chris Shays, a resident fellow at the Institute of Politics at Harvard Kennedy's School. He's a former Republican congressman from Connecticut. He served on the Budget, Finance, and Homeland Security committees, and 10 years he served as chairman of the National Security and Foreign Affairs Committee of the Government Oversight Committee. Chris, as always, great talking to you, my learned friend in Harvard. Let's start first with health care. Yes, exactly. And the math does not look good for both Paul Ryan and the president. It seems that they're bleeding members as we speak from both the Freedom Caucus side and the members that are in blue states here, the more moderate fellows. This looks like it's going to be tough for them to get the math.
This is the problem. Well, first, let's even forget about getting the math. Obama sought to do a health care bill and made it a partisan bill. Republicans are making it a partisan bill on the other side of the aisle. And they're going to be stuck with a bill that even if they pass it, people will want to repeal it. So the question is, do you repeal and replace, or do you keep it and fix it? And if they were smart, they would keep it and fix it and get bipartisan support. But they're not being smart about it.
What would you say is more dangerous for Republicans, Chris, that they actually pass this thing this Thursday and then it goes to the Senate and it dies an ignominious defeat here, or that it fails and basically the threat of the president that you're going to have hell to pay come the midterms, they in effect called his bluff?
Well, there's going to be a tough midterm election for Republicans, whatever they do, just based on how this president has acted. I mean, they're going to have to live with what he's trying to do. So the answer to your question is, if they were passing a health care bill as they've described, it's not going to be a good one, and it's not going to be something that people like. And so then it's going to be their bill that's going to be around their neck. You know, the problem is, once Republicans decided that they would keep the provision that if you have a pre-existing condition, you get health care, and they don't couple it with requiring everyone to get health care, you've got an absurd system. So basically, I can be sick and then I get health care and pay for it then. It's not going to work.
No, and you got all these Republican governors like your friend in Ohio, or Governor Kasich was one of those that opted into Medicaid's expansion. Now what happens if all of a sudden that's taken away? I think the former president never really articulated well what the legislation did. In a perverse way, what Trump has been asking for could actually do it for him, because people for the first time are going to see and feel what they would be losing.
Yeah, I mean, the unhappiness in this is that we're not talking about how do we get a good bill. We're talking about fulfilling a campaign promise that was made years ago, and then Republicans kept voting to repeal it without ever having to come up with a replacement. Now they got to repeal it and find a replacement, and the replacement is not going to be pretty. So, Rich, if the question is can they pass it, they might be able to pass it. But unfortunately, the press and the public judge the success of a president by whether they can get things through, and they don't really think about the more important issue. Well, what they're trying to get through, does it make sense? So, you know, obviously, if they don't have it pass on Thursday, that will be viewed as a failure on the part of the White House. But ultimately, if they pass it in this form, and if the Senate changes it a bit, but it's still not a good bill, Republicans are going to be stuck with the results of it in the next election, and I think they'll regret it.
Let me pivot for a second to Russia, and I'm curious, when you heard the FBI director say what he did about an active investigation against the president's campaign, if you will, and their potential involvement with Russian interest with, as we all know, hacking that impacted our democratically elected election, you know, I was just saying to somebody, if I put this in a plot line in the old West Wing series, they never would have believed me. Trump's in some trouble here, isn't he?
Trump is in huge trouble. Donald Trump has got a lot of problems when it comes to Russia. His business is dependent on the oligarchs for huge finances of his operations. That's something that we knew before he was ever president. The fact that he doesn't want to share his income statements is an indication that he's got something to hide. The fact that one of them came out, a number of us, I'm one of them, believe that was one that he was happy to have people see and probably leaked himself. So in the end, when he has said, well, Hillary Clinton is in trouble because the FBI is investigating her, that's got to mean something. The same thing applies to him. When he still is encouraging crowds to say, lock her up, he's going to be faced some moment in time with crowds saying, lock him up. It's going to all come back to haunt him. It comes around. And I'm not happy about it because we're on his airplane and he's flying it, and you want the pilot to be smart, and you want to have a safe flight, and you want everyone to be happy with the ending. I'm not sure we're going to like the ending here, and I don't think he will either. It's really astonishing how we've dummied down the office of the president, how he has. And it's alarming what it means. I'll tell you this, people are more mad than scared about what's happening. They think, how could we have elected him? And how come he's our president? I sure ask that question.
Well, Chris, as always, it's great talking to you. I know you love your new gig here, and I hope to talk to you soon.
Okay, buddy. God bless you.
All right, everybody, coming up next, the other huge story in Washington. Neil Gorsuch, the Supreme Court nominee, well, how he ruled on one particular case says a lot about how he feels about the rights of workers and the rights of companies. Critics are saying he's got it all backwards. Our legal panel weigh in after this.